Welcome to Howard's Flippin' History, where today we will be talking about the presidency of John Adams. First, I would like to say, if you recognize these slides in this PowerPoint presentation, that is because you might be the author of them. Honestly, I don't remember where I got these from, but I've been using them for years and they're great. So thank you to whoever created these slides. Now, I want you to understand that I'm an admirer of John Adams. I don't think that John Adams gets enough credit. He wasn't a people person. He was a great president in some regards, but in other regards, he really missed the mark. Now, what can be said about John Adams is that he was extremely intelligent. He just wasn't good at working with other people. He was not a politician. That is for sure. Now, he was the first vice president of our country. And he didn't really enjoy his job as vice president. As a matter of fact, he had some very unflattering words to say about being vice president. Those words are, "My country has in its wisdom contrived for me the most insignificant office that ever the invention of man contrived or his imagination conceived." Obviously, John Adams did not feel appreciated as vice president. He wanted a chance to prove himself and what he could do as a leader of our country. Unfortunately, he lived at a time when the nation was beginning to become entrenched in party politics. The two parties at that time were the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans. Now, Washington, very wise man that he was, father of our country, had warned us about getting involved, along with other things, in political parties. But we didn't heed his warnings. And unfortunately for Adams, sometimes his party forced him into making decisions that he did not want to make. And also, John Adams had some huge shoes to fill. George Washington, our first president, had an immense reputation as both a war hero and the man who set many of the precedents in our country. One of those precedents was that he only served in office for 2 terms, or 8 years. Washington strongly felt that if you were to serve longer in office, it would resemble too much the life of a king. So he decided to retire after 8 years, and that left the presidency open. John Adams saw his chance, and he would go on to become the Federalist candidate for president. Now, obviously, Washington warned us about many things. He was worried about what would happen to our country. Warned us to stay out of political parties, to not form alliances with foreign nations, to not get involved in European affairs, and to not be more loyal to the section of the country we lived in than to the United States as a whole. My question for you, for extra credit, is if Washington was such a great man and leader, why didn't we listen to his advice? You might want to look at your relationship with your parents, because I'm sure if you asked them if you listened to their advice, they would tell you no. Now, the election of 1796 is an extremely contentious one because it results in a president who is a Federalist and a vice president who is a Democratic Republican. Now, you might ask yourself, how is it that 2 different political parties could be serving as president and vice president? Well, at that time, you did not have a president and his running mate. When Barack Obama ran for president, he was running with Joe Biden. Back in 1796, when someone ran for president, they did not have a running mate. There was someone else on the team, and that allows room for Thomas Jefferson to sneak in and come in second. Because Thomas Jefferson receives the second most electoral votes, he becomes vice president, and he becomes president. Now, what's the problem with this? Well, you've got John Adams, who's a Federalist. John Adams wins narrowly by 3 electoral. Jefferson, who's a Democratic Republican, and this can lead to all sorts of problems. Now, see if you can match up the pictures with the players in this drama of the desperate founding fathers. The Constitution says that 2 candidates with the most votes become president and vice president. So, as I said earlier, we have a president and a vice president from 2 different political parties. What's the problem with that? They're going to have different ideas about how government should be run. Now, eventually this will be changed by the 12th Amendment in 1804, but that's a few years down the road, which means that, do you have any predictions about how they're going to get along while in office?